done, so let's go.
Okay.
Um, and all the other things are just going well. So yeah, it's been a good few days. About to be
Good.
another good few days.
Good, man. That's That's fabulous. That's amazing. It truly is amazing. My youngest hits double digits in October.
Nice.
Yep.
What's he want? A new gun?
No, that one's not into guns, man.
Okay,
No. Which is,
that's a little surprising.
yeah, which is very weird for me. Um, but you know what? I dig it. I dig that he is his own man and he knows what he wants and what he doesn't want. Um,
I gotta say, it's very. I appreciate that about all my kids.
uh,
The two youngest that still live with us, they couldn't be like they have so many similarities, but so many polar opposite personality traits. Like my 11-year-old is super independent, doesn't like to tell anybody that she loves them, doesn't like hugs, doesn't like giving hugs, doesn't do any of that shit. Griffin, the 10-year-old, like will run up to strangers and hug them.
yeah,
Like he's just super, positive energy, like, fun to be around, all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
But of the two, he does not like he has, I don't say no friends, but Emma has more outside of school friends. Griffin doesn't have any outside of school friends, which is it's so weird to watch. It's Twilight Zone shit. It's like you're telling me the butthole is the one that's got like a crew,
Uh huh.
and the kid who is like just the nicest ever most of the time when he's not trying to kill somebody. Like he's the one that can't seem to hold down friendship relationships. It's so weird.
Huh. Man, there are
I blame
some amazing dynamics.
it's crazy.
It's fucking
But I see
cool.
myself and my wife in both of them,
Yeah,
like different aspects. Like
yeah,
I definitely see, like if either one of them do anything wrong, I'm like, that's you, honey. And then if they're doing something right, that's me.
yeah, yeah. Yep. I get that. You know, it wasn't a movie quote. Was it in a book? It was in a book. It was a memoirs that I read. Um, or a biography. One of the two. Anyhow, there was this fantastic quote. It stuck with, and this was, I was a kid when this really resonated with me. Um, a lady was telling her husband, um, talking about the kids, said, I just want you to remember that she's part you and she's part me, but she's mostly her.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it just, um, because he was trying to mold his kids, and he had this daughter. Yes, yeah, it was. I I can see the cover now. Um, it was this British uh British soldier in India during the colonial era, the British colonial era, and um his wife got really, really sick. She got bit by a snake and was really sick. And they thought she was going to die. And so this was kind of like her parting wisdom. She ended up not dying, but this was like her parting wisdom to her husband was, I know you and the daughter are like this. And she's like, I gotta make sure that you guys knock this shit off before I leave type thing, and that was the line that stuck with me was, she's part you, she's part me, but she's mostly her. And it was, yeah, I have to think about that that's the reason I have, so I get, I get all my kids tattooed on me. And so, this one is, it's Papa Bear and Baby Bear. And then the watercolors, this mountain is right outside our house. This is how my son finds his way home. And so, so these are his colors. This is his watercolor palette. And so this is me, and this is my 9-year-old. This is Liam. We're so goddamn much alike, but we fight. We lock horns like nobody's business, dude. And we're both stubborn as fucking shit, hence the bears.
Right.
And I have to remind myself of that line, when he and I, when I'm like, dude, just fuck. You just got to remember, well, you are a little bit of me, a little bit of mama, and the rest of you is you, and I gotta respect that.
Yeah. With him, with both of them, I feel like my wife and I both need to reread, maybe something like that, because she gets frustrated. And here's why. She gets more frustrated at the 11-year-old than I do. And I get more frustrated at the 10-year-old than she does. And it's because it's like a cross personality. The 11-year-old is more like me.
Okay.
And the 10-year-old is more like her.
Okay.
So I'm like, basically when I'm dealing with my 10-year-old son, I'm dealing with my wife half the time. Like, dude, if you would,
right.
And with the 11-year-old, it's like, yeah, we just click. It's like, yeah, you're doing the thing that I would have thought to do with that particular situation. That's perfect.
Yeah.
We have no issue.
Yeah.
Let's go. The only issue I have with the 11-year-old is that part where, she can be a little disrespectful when it comes to how she responds, because she's not comfortable responding with affection or with, essentially that, doesn't, the worst thing that ever happened was, I can't remember if it was a movie or if it was something that just popped in her head. But one day I think my wife told her that she loved her, and the 11-year-old came back with, "I deeply regard you as well." And it's a half joke, half like it's a way for me to acknowledge what you said without saying it back. So really, I'm just trying to weasel my way out of that. But I was like, we've got a fucking problem here. Like, I don't know where that came from. I don't know how to navigate that, but there's something up. And ever since then, it's just been very difficult, if not in some cases impossible, to get her to say simply, "I love you too."
Yeah.
I blame me for some reason.
No.
I'm sure it's probably not, my it's some of my DNA in there at that age, I can definitely see some of myself at that age in some of her mannerisms and the way that she goes about doing things. But very much the way that you were just talking about the quote from the memoir book, it's taking that, stopping before things escalate too much, unless they absolutely have to, which happened to the 10-year-old a couple of weeks back.
Mhm.
But she's gonna be her, and trying to get her to be what I or my wife want her to be right now, forcing I love yous, forcing hugs, it's just all it's gonna do is push her away even further. It's like, you know what? You're gonna figure it out eventually. You're gonna get burned at some point, and that burn is what's going to change your behavior. You're too close to us. Like we're too connected, and there's too much of the it really doesn't matter what you do, I'm going to love you no matter what. And then you're going to run into somebody that's like, I'm not putting up with that shit, and things will change then. I
Yep.
hate it for anybody to have to go through that, but that's the only way that we truly become who we are, is we're challenged with our beliefs and behavior,
Mhm.
and then either change or don't, and then that becomes our reality
Uh-huh.
until we change.
Uh-huh.
So I just, as a parent, I want to help, because I know that this is something that could cause problems. But also, as I don't want to say an enlightened parent, but compared to a lot of the parents that I deal with or hear stories about from my
Mhm.
wife, I am most definitely an enlightened parent. I don't, I don't want to force anything, because I know it's just going to cause even worse problems down the line.
Yep. Yep. Well, I think there is I think there is an enlightenment, uh, a degree of enlightenment there. It's, I tell my kids all the time, say, because I got a temper at times, and it takes a lot to get me there, but it doesn't take a lot to get me over there, you know. And once it's gone, it's gone, man. That's putting the fucking genie back in the bottle. Um, and so when they push me to my limit and I pop off, um, the very best thing to do is just break contact. Just fucking separate from the situation, because then I go to my room and I sulk and I realize what I did, and I go back out there and I say, look, dude, I'm sorry. I was a fucking dick. You know, let's overcome this. But I tell them all the time, I'm like, I came by that honestly. My family has tempers. I mean, we were rough and tumble hillbillies. Dude, you didn't survive without a fucking temper. And my dad's temper was just, when it went, it was off the fucking charts. You know? And that caused a lot of problems between he and I. And I tell my kids all the time, I don't want to be my dad. I don't want to parent like my dad did. He parented the best way he knew how. Now that I'm a parent, I look back and I see the flaws, and one day you'll do the same. He was, if man, if I'm a 10-watt light bulb in a dark room, he was a candle in a dark room. My grandpa was probably a match. I can only imagine what my great grandpa was like. He was a spark of static electricity. And so that's one of the things we talk about is enlightenment, being enlightened, and tell my kids, man, as long as you're a little more than my 10 watts, you're enlightened. You may not be fully enlightened. You may not be ascended master. But who really is, you know? So just, yeah, I think as long as you are recognizing any flaws or faults or areas of improvement, as long as you're recognizing their independence and their value in, you know, how they can teach you, and you know, you embrace, this is something that we keep going back to, is you embrace your own vulnerability, because that's what this life is all about, is learning to be human. And the one thing that we don't want to do, one thing that we really struggle with, is our own vulnerability. Embrace that vulnerability, embrace that shit. And I think that's where true growth, I think that's where, if it is enlightenment, that's where it exists. That's where you get it. Is being able to accept all that shit. And you know, be better tomorrow than you were yesterday.
And I think that point right there is the culmination of what I'm trying to refer to as enlightenment, in the sense that it's one thing to recognize it, it's another thing to recognize it and then do something about it should something need to be done. And for me, you know, when I talk to, I'll only tell my wife, like, I don't want, I've told her that, you know, the entirety of our relationship, the last thing that I want to do is be a parent the way that my father was.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't tell my kids that, because right now we actually have a good relationship, my dad and I and my parents, and it wasn't always the case. But now that, you know, they're routinely in our lives, and it's something that I don't want to poison their minds with. They are to get, you know, they see little snippets of what I kind of dealt with in a much less with much less severity, but it shows its ugly head every once in a while. But it's not so bad that I don't let them, you know, be around them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the idea of the lessons learned, and going, okay, my God, me and my brother would be a case study for this, because, you know, not that his temperament is the same as my dad's, but the worldview, the attitude, the presence is very, very similar. And mine's very much, I don't want to say the opposite, but it's just very much different, in the sense that there's, if any bravado or any cockiness comes from me, I usually put it in the form of some kind of joke or some kind of, you know, I downplay it a little bit. I am a narcissistic, arrogant son of a bitch. I know that. But I've been able to manage it in a way that it's not detrimental to my relationships with people. Like, I can, it's not something that, it's not the guiding force of my life. My brother and my dad, they walk into a room and it's like the entire world just comes, you know, it's everybody's focused on them. And it's because they use their presence to kind of, how to, not manipulate the room, but control the room. They use their body language, their vocabulary, tone of voice is all meant to put them in a position of control of the environment. And I just walk in and I'm like, doo, I'm here. What's up?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to control anybody or anything. And that's why people, at least in the family now, kind of gravitate a little bit more towards me, only because, like, I'm just not as much of a perceived threat as they seem to be.
Okay.
And that's the thing that I never wanted to be. I never wanted to be that for the kids. I never wanted to be the dad that I only interact with my kids when I need them to do something, if they're in trouble, or if I need to critique their grades. Like, report cards, problems, and you need to take out the trash, mow the lawn. You know, there wasn't, I'm not saying that's all that there was, because it wasn't. There was a lot of, you know, there were a lot of moments, but it was primarily mom gets you up and goes to school. I go to work. I come home. I eat. I watch the news. That's that's the daily cycle. And then on the weekends, it's get up. You're washing the cars with me. We're mowing the lawn. You're raking the lawn. You're doing all this kind of stuff. And then you just go back and do it again the next week.
Yep.
Very, very routine.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't, I mean, I make my kids do things because it's teaching responsibility. But it's not slave labor.
Okay.
Although I tell them it's slave labor. It's these are the things that you got to do just to maintain what you have. It's not because I'm a dictator, and it's not because you're going to do what I told you to do right this second, unless you talk back to me. And then it's just a respect thing, and that's a different area of conversation.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be that, that overbearing, emotionally absent dad that I felt like I had a lot of the time. The dad that didn't, you said it a minute ago, didn't value what I brought to the table other than, whatever labor I could provide. Like my dad didn't really ask my opinions about stuff. I asked my kids their opinion about stuff all the time. I asked them to make decisions just to say, it might not be the thing that I would think of to do myself, but I need them to have a a bit of experience making decisions and then being confident in the decisions that they make. That's not something that I grew up with at all. I second guess almost everything that I do, even at 47 years old, 46, 47. I don't know how old I am. I'm one of those two. And it's like, I don't, I know that feeling, and I would like to do things that would hopefully put them in a position to, if not feel that all the time, but to at least not feel it as much as I know I have felt it throughout my life. Because there's nothing more, at least in my experience, there's nothing more, I don't say it's not traumatizing. It's just there's nothing that locks my mind up and makes me feel powerless than not being able to make a decision or at least be confident in the decision that I'm making. Because it's all the what ifs. It's all the it's all of the variables that I didn't think of. And when you didn't think of them, I used to get in trouble for this. It's all the things that you didn't think about, and because you didn't think about it, you're not thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's your fault because you didn't think about it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, 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 no. I don't want my kids growing up in that world. I don't know why we got into this, but
No, but it's a fantastic topic. So you studied, didn't you study psychology in college?
I did.
All right. So, was it Larkey and Hamilton, or maybe it was Larkey, Rowe, and Hamilton in 92? Published an article, a peer review. I don't think it ever went to publication in like Psychology Today or anything like that. But there, it was Larkey, it was Rowe, it was Larkey, Rowe, and Hamilton. Their big question was what started their entire study, and this was on child development, and the adult responses to their childhood development was, did you believe, or were you raised to believe that you finish everything you start? Were you raised to believe that if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself? Were you raised to believe that that you do the best you can in every situation? Were you raised to believe that you pick up after yourself? That you always close the door? That you have not necessarily very strict, but very managed routines within yourself. Okay, there are certain things that you do before you do something else. You have a checklist in your head of what you do during a day, during a week, during a month. Right? And then they said, are you the type of person who can never stop going? Do you struggle settling down? Do you struggle with taking time off? Is there a correlation? Because the people who struggle with putting work down until tomorrow, the people who always say, but I need to finish this. Let me at least finish this email. Let me at least finish this. Let me do this. I will be up in 15 minutes. Those are the people that were raised to believe that you always finish what you start. They always have something to do. And it's very detrimental to your adult relationships. Now, those people are the ones who excel at business. Those are the people who excel at leadership. They were taught to be independent. They were taught to be thinkers, and they were taught to be doers. And they were taught to believe that nobody else should outwork them. But you only have X amount of energy. You only have X number of hours in a day.
Right.
You only have X amount of opportunities to be present. You don't have an infinite opportunity to be present because not everybody's sharing the same realm of reality at the same time. So you only have X number of opportunities to be present. So those people are the absentee landlords of their own home. And something that look at my resume. That's what I was. My first divorce, I'm already married to the military. Why the fuck do I need you? That's years later, as I reflect on it and I see all this lost time and I see all this lost opportunity with that family. I mean, she was a much better spouse than I ever gave her credit for. She was young. She did some dumb things, but that's because I put her in a position where she felt she had to do some dumb things. And, but it's because I had to finish what I started. It's because I had to be out front. It's because I had to do it because nobody else could. What drives a guy to have a career like that? Ultimately, it's being able to do it. One, knowing that you can do it. Having the belief that you can do it. But also, why are we so willing to give up so much for so little? It's because deep down, we believe that we are the only ones who can do it. Nobody else can protect this nation like I can. Nobody else can protect other soldiers like I can. Nobody else can clear a house like I can. Nobody else can recover hostages like I can. So therefore, you're driven to do it at all this expense. And that's what I've had to evaluate and take advantage of those opportunities of presence and give that up. Like working doing this job, okay, doing this. I have a part-time career in government that is full-time plus hours. where do I have to consciously give myself a stopping point. There is a time when I have to say enough, dude. Not only can it wait till tomorrow, it can probably wait till next week. But can your family wait until tomorrow? Can your family wait till next week? No. No, because look at, I have to weigh it against all the stuff that I've already lost. Do I want to repeat that? Do I want to do that again? Do I want to be a dad who maybe there physically, but he's never there? He's always at work. No, that's fucking bullshit, man. Take time and go, turn off the fucking computer and go play some Uno, because the kids deserve it. That's what I have to weigh. That's the struggles that I have with this, and like going back to Larky, Hamilton, and Rowe. That's largely how I was raised. I see the same traits in my brother. My sister was coddled. She didn't have to do that. And he and I noticed it. And my sister's 5 years older than me, and my brother's 6 years older than me. I was the baby. You'd think I was the one that was coddled. And they will.
Honestly, when you said that, I thought for a hot minute that your sister was the youngest, but
yeah. And they will tell you that I was coddled. But holy shit, I got far more ass whoopings than both of them combined. But my sister never had to pick up after herself. My mother wandered around after her, picking up after her. And my sister, she has ambition, but she doesn't have that drive. And so her conquests happen over time. She's the one with absolutely the most stable relationships. She has developed relationships with her kids and with her spouse. And she's the one with lifelong friendships. She's the one that does not compete with anybody. And she doesn't expect anybody to compete with her. She was raised to be a nurturer. We were raised to be doers. To be, to not only think independently, but to be willing to live independently. And I think that's the outcome of that dynamic. So it's all about making concessions, about choosing, making a conscious effort to have an intention about what you're going to instill in your children. I want my children to be nurturing. I want them to have drive. I want them to have ambition. They don't have to have it to my degree. They don't have to. I don't expect them nor want them to put their ambition above their health and personal safety. I walked, I don't know how many miles. We estimated it was at least 5 on a broken leg to finish a road march for SFAS. All right, to get selected to do a job. I walked on a broken leg in order to get a fucking job when I already had one. What type of sense does that make? They don't have to have that. They don't have to do that. It's not worth it. That's my point.
one of the things that one of the things that I had to kind of come to a realization about is really coming to grips with the question of what does being a good dad mean to me? What is that what is the standard that I have for myself right now? Because I would argue that my dad, when he was raising us, his standard for what a parent or a dad is supposed to be, he was living up to it
Mm-hmm.
because it was, I provide for this family. There's a roof over their head, there's food, the electricity works. Like that is that I have met the expectation. I kick their ass when they do something wrong. I keep them in check. I make sure that they get their ass up. Like I instill discipline. That is what I do.
Yeah.
And probably for the first maybe I don't know couple of years of uh, the middle child and the youngest being around, I could definitely see kind of getting into that sort of routine. But then I had to stop myself and go, well, okay, you are a narcissistic prick, and you do think that you are the only one that can do it and do it right. So not only are things not getting done, but you're resenting everybody around you for not doing it to your standard, but you're not even letting them do it. So you need to stop, take a look in the mirror and be like, whoa, I, people and my, especially kids, need the opportunity. And that's the thing that I kept going back to. I am depriving them of the opportunity to be something else, to know more, to have more skills, to have the experience to make better decisions because I'm too much of a narcissistic bastard to allow them because they might mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be done to my standard. Well, of course they can't do it to your standard because they've never done it. Why have they never done it? Because you don't let them do it. They don't get the opportunity to do it, to learn, to improve. So at the end of the day, all of this that's going on, any feelings of frustration, any feelings of uh, you know, resentment, it's your fault, dumbass. You have to step back. You have to allow people to grow. You can't let your presence just overshadow everybody else because of some ridiculous standard like the plates didn't get put away the correct way or something
Mm-hmm.
stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I started making that part of not necessarily a daily cadence, but it was a constant reminder for a very long time. It was something I was cognizant about and conscientious about acting upon when the situations arrived to go, if you do this for them, you are depriving them. If you pick up after them, you are depriving them. If you if you don't allow them to make this decision, you are depriving them. This is a decision that is easy, it's not hard, it's not something that's life altering. This is an opportunity that you are depriving them. Don't do that. Because what's going to get them quicker to where you are feeling comfortable about their ability to be on their own when you can't be there to fix their fucking problems or to pick up after them? They will, they're going to be more capable if you let them make these experiences and make these decisions now than if they're doing it when they are on their own, when they're too goddamn immature and full of things that the law says are age appropriate at that time, and
Yep.
then are then trying to figure out how to make those decisions. It's
Yep.
like it. And when I started thinking in those terms, the logic center of the brain started to take over. It's like that makes total fucking sense. You've been an idiot this whole time. Let's not be an idiot anymore. Let's change our behavior so that we can help them prosper in life.
Yep.
And it's worked out for the most part, I think. My 11-year-old is one of the most independent 11-year-olds I've ever seen. She doesn't want anybody to do anything for her because she can do it on her own. That scares me a little bit. She did almost burn the house down the other day, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Cooking. We were like, yeah, you can cook. Go right ahead. It was spam and potatoes. And she'd been asking about it for a minute. But she put the oil on too long.
Yep.
I'm sick with COVID upstairs. My wife is sick with COVID upstairs, and all we hear is blood curdling screams. Run downstairs, and there's a 2 foot tall flame coming out of this pan, licking the bottom of the microwave and the cabinets. Wife's freaking out. Where's the flour? Where's the flour? I run and grab a pot holder and just grab the handle. I'm like, outside. Somebody opens the door for me, and I just take it outside. But at the end of that, I was very calm.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's freaking the fuck out because, like, what could have happened? What could have happened? And I'm like, that's the best case scenario right there. Everything that just happened, best case scenario. Both of us are here. She's doing something that's dangerous. We can intervene if we need to, but we're showing trust and that she can go do this. And she had a problem, and she saw what needed to be done, that people were there to support her when it was needed, and the experience of, hey, don't turn the goddamn oil on 9 out of 10 on the stove and leave it there.
Leave it.
I was like, dude, this is fuck yeah. It's Miller time. This is a good situation. Why are you freaking out?
Right.
But
No, dude,
it's those kinds of things that just sort of it would have been really easy for Matt of 10 years ago to have been put in that situation and just lit into everybody.
Yep.
Why did you let this happen? Why did you let her let this happen? Why did you not? Hey, I'm glad that you almost burned the house down. I am not mad. I am so happy that it happened finally. As much as you've been cooking, I've been waiting for this. And it finally happened. And I'm glad it happened. And I'm not mad. Now, what did you learn? When you're putting and don't turn it up to 9 and leave it there.
I have two individuals that have really impacted my fatherly view. Okay, two. One of them was a first sergeant that I served under when I was regular Army, and he had just come off the trail from Delta Force, and for in special operations, at least back in the day, I don't know if it's, I would imagine it's still the same way now, but there are certain ranks that you cannot attain in special operations, or it's very, very hard to attain in special operations. So in order to get that in your professional history to be eligible for the next rank, there's things that you have to do. So leadership, it's all about leadership, right? So you can make it a master sergeant, but it's very, very hard to make it to sergeant major because you don't have that broad spectrum leadership behind you. So they go from master sergeant, they move into regular Army to get their diamond to be a first sergeant so that they can run a troop, so then they can run a brigade as a sergeant major. Okay. So that's what he was doing, was he was transitioning. He went from Delta Force to regular Army for a couple of years, then he was going to go back to Delta Force with this education. All right. And I was very disliked by my command because I was not a good soldier. I was not a good soldier. I was far too independent, and I was far too much of a thinker, and I was dangerous. All right. If it said high explosive, I wanted to taste it. Show me, If it said don't go here, fucking A, dude, that's where I'm gonna go. If they told me do not engage a helicopter while we're out on maneuvers, I'm supposed to be sneaking and peeking, and they say if you see a helicopter, just call it in, don't engage it. Bull fucking shit. Let me see if I can take it down. I'm gonna shoot that fucker. And command just didn't like me. And he took me under his wing, and he's like, let's nurture this a bit and put it in perspective. And let's see if we can use some of those better qualities while teaching you a little bit of restraint. And man, he and I had, he was a big fucker. He was not muscular, but he had the longest goddamn arms and legs you've ever seen in your life. Right. And the biggest fucking feet I had ever seen, like a size 17, right? This dude had to have been easily 7'1", right? He was fucking huge, so goddamn tall, right? And so laid back about everything. His counseling sessions with me was this was back in the day when we had pin-on rank on our collars instead of like they do now, little Velcro things that go on right here, or what we had pin-on ranks, okay? So, or we had the same pin on our headgear, and if I had a problem, or if he had a problem with me, now he's been in the service for almost 20 years. Most of that was special operations. He went from raw recruit to ranger to special forces to Delta. Okay, he had worked through all this shit, right? He had seen combat and quasi-combat all over the continent. And if he had a problem with me, instead of chewing my ass like a regular first sergeant does, he would say, hey, and he'd start pulling off his rank and say, dump that shit. We got to talk. We'd pull off our rank and we would go for a walk. Let's go fucking walk the halls. Let's go walk the motor pool. Because I'm going to tell you as it is. And it wasn't McLean, it was Troy. He was talking to Troy. And there was one time when I was so arrogant that when we got behind the Connexes in the motor pool, he fucking turned around and backhanded me. He's like, I hope that woke you up. He's like, I didn't enjoy it, but I'll fucking do it again. I hope it woke you up. And I was like, where the fuck did that come from? And it really taught me not so much my place, but to shut the fuck up and listen. And his problem with me wasn't that I was wrong. His problem with me was that I was right, and I dealt with it the wrong way. And so, I learned patience from him. I learned to evaluate a situation before responding. And one of my all-time favorite interactions with him was the very first time I saw him in his Class A's, in his dress uniform. And I saw that fucking stack of medals on his chest. And one of the first ones that caught my attention was a Purple Heart with a cluster. So that means he's got multiple Purple Hearts. Okay, he's been wounded in combat multiple times. And hey, Top, tell me about your Purple Hearts. And he says, well, one of them was because I was fucking stupid. And the other one was because I had a plan that didn't turn out so well. And it's like, that is humility. That is humility right there. He didn't show scars. He didn't give this awe-inspiring speech about courage and sacrifice. That's fucking humility. How can I implement that? How can I be like that? That was him. The second one, right? You know the movie Regarding Henry?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He was a dick. He was a fucking cock, right? I watched that movie while recovering from an injury in a hospital. And I did not want to watch it, but it was the only fucking thing on. And I was angry as shit, right? And the scene where he comes home from the hospital after being shot in the head, and they're sitting down to eat, and he's there with his daughter, and she spills her milk, and she thinks he's gonna flip out. He's like, knocks over his milk. You know, all right, let's move on. And dude, I had to stop, and I don't remember a lot of the movie after that because that just really captivated me. It was just like, holy shit, dude, that's how your kid looks at you. You know, I got to see it through the eyes of a child for a moment. And Henry taught me so much in that little bitty moment. You know, I still feel that screw tighten when my kids spill something. My initial reaction wants to be very responsive. But the very best thing you can do is not respond. Be like, oh, toss him a towel. Here you go. Let's get it cleaned up. And those are the two that taught me what I wanted to be like to be a dad, you know, as a dad. I think they're, you know, reflecting on them quite often, and I do that. You know, I don't ask what would Jesus do. Say, what would Top do, or what would Henry do in this situation? And you know, those two men got me through far more than they will ever know. Yeah. And I reflect on them all the time. I think about conversations I had with Top all the time. And I make up conversations. I think, you know what, if I was 20 years old and something like this transpired, and I walked into Top's office and I said, hey, can I have 10 minutes today? Where would our conversation go? Because they never went where I wanted them to go. They never went like I expected them. Never once. I always wanted to be right, and I wanted him to tell me I was right. And he might indicate, yeah, you were on the right path, but you're fucked up, dude. And you know, I think about those are my guiding lights in a lot of decisions, especially as a parent. There you go.
I don't have too many examples myself, but I think it's interesting that, you know, one of yours comes from the movies. One of the ones that, and the reason I say that is this, one of the ones for me is actually a fictional character in a book, and I've reread those books. I don't know how many times, but the thing that gets me about it is that version of a human being. It's that version of what somebody can be, and it's not that that version is fictional. Like, this is a fictional character, and this is something that somebody is writing, but this is a potential reality. This is something that somebody could do if they put their mind to it. And there's no reason anybody can't. So why can't I? Why can't I be more like this? Well, then do what they do. React how they react. Who cares that it's a fictional character? This person is interacting with the world in a way that you wish you could.
Mm-hmm.
So use them as the guiding light if you have no other example to live by or to live up to. And you know, I can't remember how long ago it's been since I read it the last time, but it's always stuck with me. It's always stuck with me. That character, that state of mind when dealing with people in general and dealing with people. I don't say dealing with people, interacting with people has always been something that I've had to work on. And it really wasn't until reading those books and especially becoming a dad and then remembering those books that it really kind of settled in. It's like, look, the version of you that you aspire to be, you have not found in the real world anywhere. But this is the closest thing. So hone in on that. It may seem odd, but if the results get you closer to where you're wanting to be and the relationships that you're wanting to have, who fucking cares? Just do it. And that sort of aspiration has, and that example have been things that I've aspired to ever since, and it has worked very well for me. So I understand where you're coming from when it comes to maybe not necessarily people examples, but examples nonetheless.
Hmm. I enjoy hearing that. That's very cool. What fictional character? Who?
So there's an author, Orson Scott Card, science fiction, who wrote the Ender series,
Anders. Mm-hmm.
and not Ender's Game because Ender at that point is too young to. I mean, that's a different kind of experience. But every book after that, Speaker for the Dead, Xenocide, Children of the Mind, um, all of those books are him in his like mid 40s and later, and he's coming into a situation where the personalities that he's dealing with are very all over the place. Each individual is a completely different, almost psychological case study. And at the same time that he is having to navigate, all of these huge problems that are going on above and beyond these people that he's having to interact with, he's dealing with his own trauma. And all of those aspects are things that at that time and even today, in some to certain degrees, I feel like I'm navigating. I navigate my own personal trauma all the time, every single day. It's one of the first things that comes to mind anytime I'm about to deal with a negative situation with my kids or with my wife or with people. And the way that he is written as navigating this situation is just for me very inspiring. So it was something that I gravitated towards and kind of stuck in my brain. I mean, I used to read a ton and have exposed myself to so many different characters, but that character in that form and in those situations and with those obstacles resonated with me more than probably any other bit of literature I've ever read.
Mm-hmm.
And forget the fact that it's sci-fi and forget the fact that it is one of the most human series of books and human representations of fictional characters that I've ever read. And like I said, it's just something that I've always kind of looked back at as going, okay, not necessarily, to the extent of saying to myself, what would Ender do? But it's more about, okay, where is this similar to something that has happened? Is this something that we can draw some sort of insight from to make the kind of decision that would need to be made to go in the direction that you feel ideally you want to go in? That's going to have the outcome that doesn't make you feel like a complete and total piece of shit, that walks away with both parties feeling as though they've been heard, even if you disagree. Like, how can you make that the kind of communicator and the kind of relator that you want to be. And that's I think a lot about that kind of stuff. And I use that book and those series of books as inspiration and enlightenment for how I make decisions. And it all comes from a place of peace. It all comes from a place of rationality. It all comes from a place of just accept the situation for what it is, and then just figure out the best case scenario. Getting mad is not going to do anything. Pointing fingers is not going to do anything. What is going to move the needle forward? How we'll damage assess once we've figured out what the next steps are to get us on a more progressive path. But do that first.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself a little bit of time to just say, okay, regardless of how bad it is, this is what we're going to do to move past it. And if you want to go back and analyze and work through it, you've already created the solution. So there's no reason to go in heated. Just have the conversation. This is what happened. This is what we're going to do about it. Now we know what to do if this happens again. Let's move on. It was given not having, you mentioned it, earlier, not having that mental checklist for communicating, especially when typically your first reaction is to react explosively. It can be very, very difficult to move past your own, emotional psyche to get to amicable solutions and the kinds of relationships that you want with other people when your first go-to is explode. And that's something that it took a long time, and it took doing things like reading to get to a point of understanding. You can read it and not understand it until later, but eventually the lessons sunk in, and it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's not everybody else, it's me. It's how I'm dealing with things. It's how I'm looking at the world. It's how I'm looking at other people's roles in my world and what I'm allowing them or not allowing them to do within it. And it's causing problems. So yeah, at the end of the day, kind of to come full circle, you've got to change the way you do things. And it helps tremendously to have an example of what to aspire to, what is something that's different from you, that's a version or at least some version of what it is you aspire to be, and then going after it. It's the reason that we're doing Cohort. I mean, it's the reason that we're doing any kind of business venture, but it's also part and parcel to how do you want to be as a parent? How do you want to be as a husband? How do you want to be as a friend, a brother? Like, and I'm using, male roles and all of this because, those are the internal questions I ask myself.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time we're so caught up in the minutia and the bullshit that we don't stop to take those, that 5 seconds to ask that question of ourselves. Probably because we're too scared to know the answer.
Yeah.
And know what it is that we're going to do. Like, you know what? I know I need to, but I'm just going to do the same dumb old shit. Maybe something different will happen. And it doesn't. It never does.
Nope.
But it's taking that moment, those moments, because it's not just going to be one. It's going to be, it's going to be something that's, I don't say people would constantly fight with themselves over, but you should check yourself often. And it's so funny that Top backslapped you, because one of the movies that I watched, I don't know, 15 years ago was Kingdom of Heaven. And one of the scenes in that movie that has always stuck with me is when Liam Neeson is essentially knighting his son, who's estranged, knighting his son, and tells him, okay, you're going to do, like, you're taking an oath to do this, 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 and this. Do you understand? Yes. And then he takes his gauntlet and backhands him across the face with it. And he leans in and says, that's so you don't forget. And sometimes it takes something shocking, something out of the just out of the blue to reset and go, okay,
Right.
okay, this is
Yep.
something to pay attention to. This is something that I need to remember.
Yep.
And it's those kinds of things that sometimes I look at my kids and go, okay, is this a gauntlet situation, or
Yeah.
is this just a like, hey, let's chat?
Yeah. Yep. You know, it's awesome that you bring that up. Because, one thing that I realized in the service is that there are associations that you can have that will, that you have to have them to reach certain points. You will never be a command sergeant major if you are not a high-ranking Mason. It won't happen. You will not get selected. Guaranteed.
Define high ranking. Like we talking
33rd
30?
degree.
Okay, so you got to be 33rd. All right.
Yep. And
Starter.
knowing what I have studied about Masons and Templars and what have you, they don't. Today's movies. I think this is where Coppola and that era of new directorship really impacted our movies. They turned them more. They took them from being just purely entertaining that can interject any type of nonsense or bullshit that you want, and they made them painfully realistic. And I watched Kingdom of Heaven when it came out. I believe it was when it came out. And man, I could see so many of the officers and high-ranking NCOs in Liam Neeson's character. I can see that. That is, and so that's a characteristic, a trait that has transcended DNA. That has transcended the ages. I don't. We used to joke that some of the guys that we worked with, some of these these true blue warriors. They weren't soldiers; they were warriors. That's what we all were, but each of us individually have a very hard time associating that with us because we always throw in that how esteemed our colleagues are, and that we're the weak link, and we have to each be better, and that's what drives the team to being what it is. But we used to joke all the time that, my God, that motherfucker belongs on a 13th century battlefield. That's the type of guy that's going to be lopping off heads with an axe and taking a break to go eat bacon, drink some wine, and go back and do it some more. That's the type of fucking personality that so many of these guys were. And studying these societies, these associations. I don't like to refer to them as secret societies, but these societies. How can it be a secret society when you drive into a town, if it has a Mason's Lodge, they have signs pointing to the Mason's Lodge before they have signs pointing to the hospital or the airport. You know, how secret is that, right? But in studying these, I realized that, man, that is a characteristic that has transcended, parentship and DNA and greater society. I can look back at conversations that I had with Todd and reactions that he had to me and things that he put me through. That was initiation. That was a form of initiation. I got in trouble one time doing something extremely stupid and then responding with something even, what I did, you couldn't, being a rational person, looking at it, saying, okay, that is about the pinnacle of stupidity. I took it one step further with my reaction to it, right? And so he didn't even give me an opportunity to sober up. He met me with, we had rucksacks. When things really got tough, we would go on hikes. We would go on ruck humps. And he met me walking out of the commander's office. He was in shorts and a tank top and combat boots, and our rucks filled with rocks. They were loaded with rocks, right? And it's not you empty rocks as you go. Every waypoint, you add a rock. And so it gets heavier and heavier as you go, right? This was the trial. And he wanted to push me to my breaking point. He knew that he didn't really have a human breaking point. And so he wanted to see where I would break. He was always, and I didn't realize that. At the time I thought it was punishment. But he was pushing me to a breaking point. And that day he got the breaking point. And he's like, fucking finally, dude, you're exhausting me trying to get to this. He's like, now we can discuss things because you're finally broken. And then, studying these associations, man, that's what initiation is. That's what some of these initiations are. There was a time that he got so frustrated with me. Not only did I have to walk through the sand of Fort Irwin, California. Not only did I have to hump all that shit with this heavy ass fucking rucksack filled with rocks and bricks, but then he put me in a blindfold. And looking back at it now, it's like, because I was that goddamn stubborn. I would not admit defeat. And it's not that he was looking for me to be defeated by the event. He wanted me to realize that I had defeated myself. And that's what initiation is. And so, telling that story, Kingdom of Heaven, man, that's a rite of passage. That is an initiation rite. We would have our debriefs as we walked back to the motor pool or back to the parking lot or back to the CP. We would have debriefs. He's like, all right, what do you take away from this? And how are you going to remember? How are you not going to do this fucking bullshit again, Troy? And it was initiation, and I was so fucking blessed to have a guy like that in my corner. So it's amazing that you bring that up, that you share that one, because that's precisely how it worked. That's cool. I'm not a. I used to be a huge fan of Liam Neeson until his politics reigned supreme. So I don't go out of my way to watch much of his stuff. Now he's become the most overrated B-rate actor out there. But there are. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's very easy for me these days to separate the art from the artist because I don't expose myself at all to any of the media propaganda around any of these people. Like, I know them because they're playing a character. I don't know them because of their political associations or their, what charities they go to or who they're dating. Like, I don't give a fuck about any of that shit. Like, did you do a good job in the movie? Is it something that I'll remember? In this particular case, yes. Would I want to watch something else of yours? It really depends on all the other factors. Because to your point, there was a time when, yeah, Liam Neeson, he put out a movie, it's probably going to be pretty good. And now it's all this, maybe he's looking at the twilight of his career and he's just taking the easy money for easy pay and going. I don't know. But it's not difficult for me to, in some cases, it's like I can't watch the same guy play the same character over and over and over and over again. Like Tom Cruise is that for me. Like he plays literally the same character in every movie he's in. The last time he played something different was probably back in the 80s when he did Legend.
Yeah. Right.
Like everything after that has just been the same arrogant, intelligent, cocky ass motherfucker that wins at the end. Like every single fucking movie. I can't. I'm like, why is he such a huge star? Like I don't get it. It's got to be Scientology in the background. Got to be.
Yeah.
But can't watch his shit anymore. So I can't. That's one actor I can't separate. But it's mainly because of the art. Because his art is shit. That everybody seems to love it.
Right.
But when it comes to what's going on in Hollywood, like if I know anything, it is completely tangential. It's not. It just comes into the conversational zeitgeist, if you will, and okay, I'm exposed to it, and I feel bad when I'm exposed to it too.
Right.
It's like fuck that. I didn't want to know that Ben and J Lo are divorcing again. Like, I want to know that shit. I don't care. Oh, she's keeping the $5.6 million diamond that he gave her that's now worth 17.8. Like, I don't care. Has he made a good movie lately? Like, is it worth watching?
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I agree. I do like to study and understand the histories of some of these people, especially the ones who have made impacts someplace other than the screen. Like Robin Williams. Robin Williams is one of my all-time favorites because he knew exactly how fallible he was. And he understood the value of relationships. When you remember City Slickers, okay? When Billy Crystal, so Robin Williams originally got that role. He didn't realize that Billy Crystal wanted it, and they were less acquaintances and more less friends and more acquaintances at the time. Though they were good acquaintances, but that was a relationship that Robin Williams really respected, and Billy Crystal was looking for this particular part to kind of put him back into bring him back into relevancy. and because he had a waning career, and Billy Crystal was in California, and Robin Williams was in New York when Robin Williams found out that Billy wanted this role. So he flew to Los Angeles, rented a Lamborghini, bought a dozen roses, and drove to Billy Crystal's house and said, "Will you forgive me? Can I take you to lunch?" And then he called and turned down the role while Billy was there. All right, now, keep in mind that actors' pay wasn't then what it is now. He wasn't, he was wealthy, but not the insane wealthy that they are. He wasn't getting paid millions per role. He was getting paid hundreds of thousands per role. And they were lucky to put out 1, maybe 2 movies a year. Actually, at the time, most actors were getting paid tens of thousands per role. And so for him to divorce himself from all the happenings of New York and take the time to fly to California, throw down the credit card to rent a Lamborghini, buy roses, and show up on Billy Crystal's front doorstep on his knees saying, "Will you forgive me? Can I take you to lunch?" Dude, that just says so fucking much about his character and the value that he placed on other people. Those are the guys that I like to know about. It's the self-indulged, holier than thou arts. They're the ones that I have no love for.
Jim, you don't want to talk about your war stories of being a parent?
We haven't given him an opportunity.
I know, right?
No, I've just been no, sorry guys. I joined late there and I did not want to interrupt the role you guys were on because you're gold. You're gold.
Well,
Yeah, sorry, I do have to drop that. I got a 9:30 coming up here, but I can't disagree with absolutely anything you guys said there. Anything along the lines of fatherhood and I think it's just all about and Troy back to top and the way he was able to talk to your level and bring himself down is what we need to do as dads.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you said it so many times there, and there's something that I struggled with earlier on was wanting to pigeonhole my kids, make them be who you want them to be, and that's just not what it's about. They're individuals and they're going to be individuals, and it's just about helping them grow into the person that they're meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's not up to us to define that, and as much as we can, bring ourselves down to their levels. And Troy, really early on there, you were talking about, when you lose your temper and you go in your room and just, sulk.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I do. It's, you have the snap, and it's like, son of a bitch, what'd I just do?
Yeah.
Then you have to turn and walk away and come back and listen, man, I screwed up. I'm sorry. And just telling them that brings you down to their level. And I think it's important for kids to see is that you're able to, admit when you're wrong, and it helps them too. Because there's going to come a time in their life where they're going to screw up totally and need to be able to go and say, "I'm sorry, I screwed up." But yeah, no, absolutely everything you guys are saying they're definitely relating with. And sorry, I didn't want to, you guys had the flow of the conversation. I did not want to just pop in there and absolutely throw it off track in any way, but definitely appreciate everything you guys were saying there.
Interject whenever whenever the feeling hits you.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
all good.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, man, I hate that we've only got a couple more minutes with you. I would love to hear. I would love to hear more from you, and things that have, people that have impacted you, and this whole conversation started. I was telling Matt about a book I read as a kid. It was a biography, by this British Army officer during the colonial era, and he was in India with his family, and his wife had been bitten by a snake, and they thought she was going to die. She was sick, and he had this daughter, this teenage daughter, that he just locked horns with, that he could not control. You know, she was, the bane of his existence. And the wife told him, says, I want you to realize that she's a little bit of you, and she's a little bit of me, but she's all her. And that's stuck with me. That's what got us started on this, I think.
Yeah,
I would love to hear what, some of your takes and perspectives and what have yous.
When you get the time.
Yeah.
Maybe Monday. Well, no, I'll take that back. That's something we should talk about real quick. Monday. Isn't Monday Labor Day?
It is.
Yep.
Are you going to call it Monday?
I'm going to be absent.
I'll probably be absent too because I'll be in LaGrange doing family stuff. So you probably need to let Brian know that. I mean, Jim, you and Brian can hook up, but I don't know if you guys got anything going on.
I probably could meet if we have things to talk about. So I'll drop Brian a poll and see what he has going on. If you guys won't be there, it's no big deal. If he's able to, we can, or if not, we'll just meet on Thursday then, I guess, right? Unless we want to find another day.
And I'm always game for other days. Most always game for other days. But this weekend and Monday, I will be literally off the net. We're gonna divorce from society.
Nice. Enjoy. Sorry, guys, I do have to run here.
All right, brother.
We'll chat next week. See you guys. Bye.
I did. Very cool.
Very, very, very cool. All right, my man. What else we got? Didn't do any work today?
Yeah, right? So I've been working on the modules to these courses. So Start Your Business is completely done. I have a lot to to update in business credit. But it is almost done. And it's getting close. Man, I did 5 or 6 videos over the weekend. But this is a robust, it was robust before. These courses are, if we use these right, these courses are a mint. They will print money for us. They are very substantial. And I don't know that I have a lot else that I have accomplished. I haven't done shit on social media. Not even LinkedIn.
Speaking of that, I've got Facebook posts out to 9/8 and TikTok that will I've still got repurposed up and running, so it'll cascade out to 9/5. So I've got some more work to just push that out in the next a couple of days. I'll try to get some of it done while there's downtime or in the downtime that we have over the weekend, because there's a couple of other things I got to do as well. But in talking about Start Your Business, it's really going to be the content marketing that's pushing that out there if we're not doing any kind of paid. So the question then becomes, do we want to spend some time next Thursday kind of